Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy. Thank you for tuning in today. And if you're here for the live chat, thank you so much for your participation. I really appreciate it. Today, we will be listening to Shane's presentation on the storm systems that have been hitting parts of the United States, and they're called derechos. So he'll be going into that. They caused a lot of damage in the cities of Houston, Oklahoma City, Wichita, and Kansas City. And then a couple of days after that, there was another one that hit Omaha, Green Bay, and Davenport. So he will be going into the damage and going a little bit more into the science behind these derecho storm systems. Before we get started, though, if you have not subscribed yet, please do so before you leave. And for everyone, please like, comment, and share this video with as many people as possible so we can get the word out. Also, if you want to support the channel in another way, you can send a super thanks or a super chat. And also, I'll leave Shane's Venmo link in the description. A lot of questions, I get questions here and there asking if Shane gets paid. And yes, he does get paid. We split the earnings from these videos. But I'll be very honest with you guys. These videos aren't terribly profitable. My average video earns a little over $7 per 1,000 views. So, we're not splitting a really big amount. So it would really help if you were to donate to him. He worked really hard on this presentation. So I wanted to make sure I said that. And with that, here is Shane's presentation.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. So by now, a lot of you have probably heard about the storms that hit Houston, Texas, and left 7 dead and 1 million people without power because of damaging winds that are now being called a derecho. Now, I'm going to show the NOAA forecast. And so the NOAA and the National Weather Service had forecasted a moderate risk for damaging winds for that area of Texas. And they were very accurate in their predictions. Now, these storms, they move in really fast, and they have very damaging straight line winds. And it's being called a derecho, which is it's the second time I've ever heard this term. The first time I ever heard of these was last fall. And at the time, they were thought to be relatively rare. But it seems like they are becoming more common. And so I wanted to cover this. These storms actually move in relatively quickly. So this is a dash cam. This is a still from a dash cam video that was taken on the afternoon commute on US 290. Now, this is about an hour and a half before the sun sets, and you can see that it looks like a relatively normal afternoon with thunderstorms perhaps coming in. But now this video was sped up at 4 times speed, and so I'm going to skip ahead just 5 minutes in real time to show you what the skies look like just 5 minutes later. So this is just 5 minutes later on the same highway, and you can see how much darker it is already. And the wind and the rain have not yet arrived. Now, 5 minutes later, you can see what's called a shelf cloud approaching. Now, that's the bottom of what's called a mesoscale convective system, which is a type of severe thunderstorm that is usually very large. It's usually a supercell or a series of supercells with very strong damaging winds, straight line winds. Now, they can spawn tornadoes, but this is a very damaging phenomenon because it affects such a wide area with almost tornado-like winds. So just to highlight how fast that it gets dark, that it got dark over Houston, I'm going to play this news clip that shows just how dark it was just like a few minutes after.
This is our tower cam right now as the storms are entering. It is black as night. Now, I don't know if we need to adjust the camera levels to get a true view of the color, but this is a very powerful thunderstorm that is coming in. The National Weather Service is saying that they've been sampling the radar coming out of Bush Airport that David's going to show you in just a moment of wind speeds of about 100 miles per hour, just 400 feet off the ground. So this is very important. If you are in a high-rise building, you want to get to a lower level because the winds are stronger. The higher you go up. So if you're working that across the street from us at the Greenway Plaza, if you're downtown Houston, it's coming your way. It's already hitting the condominiums and the high rises on the West Loop. A very significant windstorm is rolling in. Our tower cam is now beginning to shake. David, it's 6:30. The sun doesn't set for another hour and a half, and it is dark as night outside as this rolls in.
And Travis, what's incredible about this camera shot is that just 5 minutes ago, it was bright.
Yes.
Okay, it was bright, and then we looked up at it again, and it's dark as night out there because this extreme, destructive, severe thunderstorm is moving through the city of Houston right now.
All right, so you can see how these things move in so quickly, and it goes from like a bright afternoon to almost nighttime looking, because this large mesoscale convective system is a giant supercell that blocks out the sun, basically. All right, so now I want to show a radar image of the wind that was heading into Houston. And now this is right just northwest of downtown Houston, and the radar measured a reading of 110 miles per hour. And this was heading towards downtown Houston. But one thing I want to point out is that the radar also detected no rotation. This is not a tornado. There were one or two possible tornadoes that were on the northwest and to the north of Houston. But what hit Houston in the downtown area was actually not a tornado, and it was straight line winds. I went back and I watched the radar videos from this time, and they are just straight line winds with no rotation, no couplets, and no confirmed correlation coefficients of debris in the air that would suggest a tightly wrapped tornado. So yeah, you can see here that the wind speed was 110 miles per hour as it approached downtown Houston. And a lot of people thought it was a tornado, but it wasn't. And I will show you a video from downtown Houston that shows what appears to be a tornado, although there was no rotation in the storm cell above. All right, so as you can see in that clip, wind speeds were approximately 100 miles per hour or greater, and it did appear to be changing directions, but I do think that was because of the wind blowing down the different streets. So this was actually, the video was in front of the Wells Fargo Tower, and that is directly to the southeast of this photo. That's not showing in this photo, but I watched the videos that covered that area, and the radar indicated no rotation, only straight line winds. So now I'm going to show you some of the damage that occurred from this. These are power line towers that came down in or near Houston, Texas. Yes, Cypress, Texas, which is just northwest of Houston. And these power lines are rated for 140 mile per hour winds. Yet some of them actually came down. So it looks like there may have been gusts as high as 120 or 140 miles an hour that were just not recorded by radar. Now, another thing that happened here was this brick building had one of its walls blown out. Now, I'm not sure if this was like a parking garage or some sort of other structure. They do look like older bricks with traditional mortar that is a little bit weaker than, say, cinder blocks and reinforced concrete and things like that. There was also many examples of trees that were blown down. And you can see this one is actually from Houston area. And one of the trees has been completely toppled onto a house. Now, this was actually being called the 2024 Houston Derecho. And this is only the second time I've ever heard the term Derecho. The first time was last fall. And they were relatively rare phenomena until recently. It seems like they have experienced an uptick in these phenomenon, especially in the Midwest, Midwestern United States, from all the way from Texas up to Green Bay and to the East Coast even. So now, what is a derecho? A derecho is an area of damage, of wind damage that extends for more than 250 miles, and it has wind gusts along the damage path of at least 58 miles per hour. Now, and one we just saw recently, we had sustained winds of 75 to 80 or even 90 miles an hour with wind gusts over 100 miles per hour. Now, the one that recently happened was over 60 miles wide, and it traveled over 400 miles, reaching as far as Florida, at least on the 16th. So now I'm going to show you how these work. Derechos are mesoscale convective systems that have a very strong rear inflow of cold air that's coming down and forward. Now, as this pool of cold air increases in size, it pushes the front in front of it even faster and faster over time. Now, this graphics or this says here that the name comes from the Spanish word la derecha, which means straight. And here at the bottom, you can see it says, however, they are a rare occurrence as compared to other storm systems like tornadoes or hurricanes. However, as we've seen in the last week, there have been 3 derechos. Now, this is also information that I found on a site about derechos that shows the classic shelf cloud of the mesoscale convective system. Now, if you see anything like this approaching, it's not a tornado. It's much, much larger than a tornado. These things can be 60 miles wide or greater, but they move in very quickly and they have damaging winds that can be as high as the winds of a tornado. So these are classic shelf clouds. And I just want to show you guys what some of these look like. This is another mesoscale convective system. It's a supercell that has a shelf cloud, and you can see the shelf cloud approaching. Now, winds might be relatively calm until that shelf cloud passes, but then as it passes, you're going to get heavy rains and extreme winds that can be very damaging. Now, here's another example of a derecho shelf cloud. These are actually not from the last week, but they are very reminiscent of what a derecho looks like. So now you see an eerie green glow coming from the inside of this, and that's because the sun is actually shining through the other side and illuminating the rainfall that's inside of there, which is absorbing most of the spectrum except for the blues and greens. All right, so now I want to go into the next derecho that happened, which was on May 19th, and it covered a very large area, which included Wichita, Oklahoma City, and Kansas City, to name a few. Now, I first became aware of these because of a YouTube channel known as Max Velocity. Now, I've been actually following Max ever since I had a few tornadoes in my area. There was one night where 3 tornadoes hit within like a 5-mile radius of where I live. And the way I was able to keep track of that and stay safe was by listening to Max Velocity. And I want to give a special shout out to my neighbors for letting us spend some time in their tornado shelter that night. So the next thing I want to go to is a clip of Max talking about the derecho that was developing on the 19th.
There are tornadoes happening right now, but that's actually not the big event. The big event is going to be this over here in western Kansas. We are watching for the potential for a derecho to develop over the next few hours, and that will produce the potential for numerous to widespread damaging winds across a line of storms that is expected to really develop, intensify, and materialize into a line of storms producing widespread damaging winds that could be as high as 105 miles per hour. So this is a very dangerous situation here today. And with that said, a very rare severe thunderstorm watch that is a particularly dangerous situation severe thunderstorm watch was issued, and this is a PDS severe thunderstorm watch. That's what that means. This basically means we have a particularly dangerous situation, and the concern today is going to be the potential for widespread damaging winds expected, with some scattered significant damaging winds that are around 90 miles per hour. I'm not ruling out an isolated storm though that's near 100 miles per hour.
All right, so I want to give a special shout out to Max and give him a special thanks for giving me a heads up that night with all the tornadoes that we had. And I will link his YouTube channel in the comments, in the description box below, as well as his Twitter. So now we're going to move on to what happened on May 19th. So here is a photo from a Sam's Club in Kansas where you can see the classic shelf cloud of a mesoscale convective system approaching. And this was approaching at a high enough speed with damaging enough winds to be classified as another derecho, just 3 days after the one that struck Texas. Now, during the course of watching this, I watched this live. One thing that I noticed was that as the derecho began near Dodge City, just west of Wichita, Kansas, that there were very damaging winds of 70, 80 plus miles an hour, even as high as 90 plus that were recorded as the storm intensified. But another thing I want to point out is that just downwind from Dodge City, we have what appears to be some waves or clouds lined up. Now, this is actually a reflectivity scan on the radar. Now, the reflectivity generally indicates precipitation, but as we will see, the precipitation was not only aligned into these lines, but some of the cloud cover was as well. Here is another view of the waves that are actually just to the west of Wichita, Kansas, which also received some damage. I was not able to find examples of the damage from Wichita, Kansas itself, but I do have other examples of damage that occurred across Kansas from only straight line winds. I'm not going to be including any tornado damage in this video. I'm going to only include straight line wind damage from the derecho itself. All right, so now here's an expanded view from Wichita, and you can see that the Wichita radar tower is picking up these parallel lines that are moving into Wichita. And I'm not sure how common that is. I've never seen it before myself, but we will get into that a little bit later. And then here is another close-up view of the Wichita radar station picking up these these signatures on radar of these parallel lines of precipitation that are heading into Wichita. All right, so now I want to show you guys some damage that took place in Kansas. Now, this is from Russell, Kansas, and you can see that the wind was straight line winds that were 80 to 90 miles per hour, and they were strong enough to snap and topple these telephone poles. Now, for any of you who are familiar with the Maui disaster, this would be a very familiar sight. And we're going to show you some more things that might also resemble the Maui disaster as well. Okay, so here we have a garage in Russell, Kansas that was blown down and collapsed. And this is not tornado damage. This is actually straight line winds from the derecho itself. And then we also have from Halstead, Kansas, we have some more similar damage of sheds and roofs that were blown off. And this is also confirmed by the National Weather Service and FEMA and so forth to be straight line winds and not a tornado. And I'm going to play a video about that now.
National Weather Service, Ross, has been up here in the Harvey County area. A lot of questions raised. Was this a tornado or was it straight line winds? And you can see why, looking at the damage, why people may be raising that question. Are you getting any reports in from them?
So looking at the overall damage coming out of Harvey County, it's easy to think that maybe there was a tornado, but actually digging into the damage and debris, that's what the National Weather Service was doing earlier today. Looks like it's straight line winds estimated to be around 90 miles per hour. For comparison, that would be similar to a Category 1 hurricane, so it's not a big surprise that we're seeing a lot of trees down, perhaps some trees that are uprooted, a lot of big branches that are down on homes and power lines. There were a lot of reports of significant wind last night. How about 100? This was the strongest. This was not estimated. This was measured wind from Salina, 86 from Hutch, and from Whitewater, estimated winds of around 80 miles per hour. Again, looking at the damage, it's easy to be thinking that it was a tornado, but further assessment, sometimes they'll find trees that are flattened all laying in the same direction, which would suggest straight line winds and not a tornado.
Any confirmed touchdowns? None of the warnings that we have right now are confirmed, which is why I'm not really talking too much about it, because I don't really see anything on radar either with these storms. They're just mostly a wind threat, in my opinion.
All right, so that was Max, and he's kind of an expert on this. And even though there were tornado warnings that night, there were no confirmed, well, there wasn't very many confirmed areas of rotation. So most of it was actually from straight line winds. All right, so now I want to go to Oklahoma. So after this, so actually, let's see here. Yeah, this is also on May 19th, which was probably just prior to the Wichita storm, was a satellite view of the winds over Oklahoma. Now, one thing that's very interesting about this is that you can see, again, wave patterns that appear to be moving not only to the north of this storm cell, but also inside of the storm cell itself. You can see that little narrow wave going out from the center of that thing. And it's very unusual, and I've never seen anything like that before, but I'm not a meteorologist, so I will defer to those who are. All right. So now I want to show some of what was written up about the May 19th. So this is the National Weather Service did an article on the May 19th derecho and HP supercell. And they talk about this derecho, and there was also another article on this from Fox News calling it a derecho. And this is the storm that passed through the central Midwest and plains on May 19th, and it did a lot of damage. So now I'm going to go to May 21st. Now, on May 21st, the NOAA and National Weather Service predicted damaging winds for a large swath that reached from Texas all the way up to Wisconsin. And the area in purple is actually an extreme risk, I believe, of damaging winds. And it looks like they pretty much nailed it again when it came to Iowa and Wisconsin there. But they also occurred on the northeastern area of Kansas and the southeastern portion of Nebraska. All right, so I'm going to move right along and show this next graphic is an overlay of the predictions with the actual storms. And you can see that the actual storms came right through the area that was predicted by NOAA and the National Weather Service. Okay, so now on May 21st, this storm was a squall line of storms, which you can see there's a very long line of storms that passed through Omaha on its way to Des Moines. And when it reached Des Moines, it did spawn like 5 or 6 tornadoes, something like that. They were actually confirmed tornadoes. And I'm not going to show tornado damage today. I'm really only limiting the damage that I show to straight line winds so that you guys can get an idea of what we're dealing with as opposed to tornadoes. It is, in my opinion, that this is a more damaging event than tornadoes because it covers such a wide area. Tornadoes are a very localized phenomenon that can sometimes only damage like one property at a time, whereas this is a 60-mile wide storm that damages things for over 250 miles. All right, so now we can see as the storm reached Des Moines, there were several tornadoes that were spawned off of this, and they were rotationally confirmed on radar. And they also had a correlation coefficient of debris that was lifted into the air that was also detected by radar. However, the majority of the damage that was done across the Des Moines area was actually done by straight line winds. All right, so now we're going to go to Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm going to show the storm as it passed through Madison. Now, these 2 or 3 tornadoes that it shows here may have been actual tornadoes, but you can see all the way across the screen from top to bottom the red area of damaging winds, which are all straight line winds, except for the few isolated tornadoes. All right, so now I want to go to Green Bay. All right, so as it advanced, the storm reached Milwaukee and Green Bay, hitting Green Bay a little bit harder than it did Milwaukee. Now, as this storm passed over Lake Michigan, it started to wind down a little bit because Lake Michigan is a large, cool body of water that will cool the air that's approaching Michigan, and it will decrease the severity of the storm. So by the time that these storms reached Michigan, they were a lot less damaging of winds. All right, so now I want to show something that Max said about the winds on May 21st.
Again, a lot of these storms initially with the line of storms that we have are mainly going to be wind producers, but we definitely could get some QLCS tornadoes as that moves to the east. Keep in mind the tornado watch with where these storms are right now is just a normal tornado watch. Doesn't really mean much when you think about it, but the PDS tornado watch will be back over here like near Atlantic and Carroll, back basically just to the east of where these storms are right now. It's about right here. So really the worst of the severe weather is really going to start to begin here in the next 30 minutes, and it'll run all the way through about 8 to 9 o'clock tonight across Iowa, Missouri, Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, back over in Illinois. We could even see some severe weather there back in Texas and a few other spots. So again, it looks like a pretty active day here today, especially in Iowa.
All right, so as you can see, Max himself said the severity of the storm was mainly from the straight line damaging winds and not so much from the tornadoes themselves. Now, I do want to show a clip that is actually from my home state of Indiana, and this actually hit very close to where I grew up, and it looks very similar to the damage that was in Texas. All right, so notice these power line towers that have fallen over due to the high winds, and as the drone flies around from one to the next, notice not only that they're laying in the same direction, but notice how far they are spaced apart. This indicates more of a straight line wind damage than it does tornadoes because a tornado would have had to been very large to get so many of these power line towers in one shot. And there just was not any other damage that would be correlated with a tornado. And it looks like most of these are down because of straight line winds and not because of any particular tornado or even a series of tornadoes. Now, this did occur in my home state of Indiana, and I want to give a shout out to all of my friends and family back home. I miss you guys. Be on the lookout, stay weather aware, and be safe. And I'll see you guys soon. Now, as the drone continues to fly around, you'll see that there are various towers over a long spaced out distance. And if this was done by a tornado would have done so much other damage. There would be other signs of tornado damage as well, all along this entire path. But as you can see, most of the towers are laying in the same direction. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut that short because you get the idea. Those power line towers were rated for 120 to 140 miles an hour, and some of them actually came down, and that was due to straight line winds. So it looks like the gusts may have reached as high as 120 or greater, even as far north as Indiana. Okay, so now I want to switch it up a little bit, and I want to talk about this phenomenon of derecho. All right, so I'm going to show, this is a graph from Google Trends, which shows the screen grab that I took from May 21st shows that search terms for the term derecho were at an all-time high. That's what the 100 means. That means that was at 100% of its peak. So this is the peak search term for derecho this week. And I will also show the history of derechos from 2004 to present. The last time that there was this kind of activity was in August of 2020, when there was another particularly damaging derecho. But it's been since then that it actually caught the attention of the public. And now we've had 3 of them in a single week. Okay, so now I want to switch gears and go to some really good stuff. Now, I found this. This is a guy on YouTube and Twitter called Into Thin Air, and he was recently featured on the Alex Jones show, which really got me thinking, especially when it comes to those waves. So I'm going to show that now.
Taking a look at the long wave infrared, we can see some very weird anomalies and shapes, like straight lines, things you don't normally see in weather. And again, these are right inside of 2 NEXRAD radar tower sites. All right, everybody, welcome back. May 16th, 2024, and we're going to discuss some of this severe weather that's going to be hitting Texas and Louisiana, as we discussed days ago. And with that, we need to explain some very weird things going on. Look how these storms are wrapping perfectly around NEXRAD radar towers. They're right in this area. I'll explain that, and also the exact area we said to watch. I want you to watch this radar area down here. It is a complete circle and it is very much activated, and watch what happens to all this weather. It begins to just shoot straight south into the eastern part of Texas and then will blow up right here, as we said, Texas and Louisiana. Just as we posted 2 days ago, warning of this exact area. And look what's going off in that area, the exact anomaly from the exact radar tower we're talking about now. You can see it right on your screen here. It's just pulsing like crazy, creating an entire 360 beam, and we can see it is clearly affecting this weather. We had a weird glitch right about there where a bunch of the NEXRAD towers shut off and then boom, they're right back on. So we can see that here. You can also see it on another chart I'm going to show you in a second, but this is clear as day. This is very much activated and is definitely affecting this system, and in turn will enhance it, just like we've been seeing over the last couple weeks. Taking a look at the long wave infrared, we can see some very weird anomalies and shapes, like straight lines, things you don't normally see in weather. And again, these are right inside of 2 NEXRAD radar tower sites. Very odd shapes here, jagged edges, things you are not supposed to see in nature. I mean, come on, this stuff is definitely not natural. It can't be, especially with the fact that we're seeing exactly what's causing these. And we can see it right here on this chart, the mosaic version of the NEXRAD radar towers, and then we see these storms just dip down straight to the south, exactly where this main tower is now activated. The more you watch this, the more you can see what's going on here. Take a look at that perfect edge right there. Now take a look at that system slowly moving to the east, and then boom, dips right down into where the radar is activated. That's the end of the data we have here, but we could see before they try to change this that the tower is very much activated and covering the exact areas in which we're expecting this severe weather. Why would that be? Why do we not see any of these towers up here doing the same exact thing? It's because these towers are enhancing and influencing this weather 100%. And now, as you can see, NOAA has followed suit. Our original warning days ago was put out way before this chart came out, and now look at the wind percentage percentage here. Here is our hail percentage, the 30% with the 15% wrapped around, mostly in Texas right now. That's over the next day or two. And then we see the entire system start to move into western Louisiana. Tornado risk as of now around 5% in those heavily watched areas. I highly recommend you check out my other videos on YouTube and here on X, where I explain this stuff in very great detail, as much as I possibly can, because it is more than important for people to know exactly what they're seeing here. This is not normal and it's not supposed to be happening. I'll have many more updates on this storm system as time goes on. Please take the time to share this if you can, and I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, so that was posted by Twitter user Into Thin Air, which he posted before the Houston Derecho, which was featured on the Alex Jones show, which I found after searching for videos on the Houston Derecho. So after going to his Twitter page and scrolling down a little bit, I found another video that he did on frequency waves. And I watched that video and it struck me as very similar to the waves that I saw in the radar signatures of the reflectivity, as well as some of the cloud formations that we saw during the derechos, as well as the Maui fire.
Look at these frequencies going on. And not only that, I'm going to prove to you that these are frequencies because you could see it in the cloud wave. But these distinct frequencies are coming from Texas and shooting from western Oklahoma down. So we do have crisscross beams going on in here. That's what you want to look out for. But take a look at these clouds. As I show you the sun coming up over Oklahoma and Texas, you could see the ripples in these clouds that these radar are creating. They're just stationary. The energy is just sitting there. So anything that then moves into this area, like the low pressure system that's going to pull that moisture up through Texas and Oklahoma, once that moisture gets here, it's going to explode into these big severe storms, hail, tornadoes, everything you think these storms can produce. And here are those rings you could see moving in all directions. And again, here we go. Watch it here on the mosaic chart. Everything from Texas all the way up through Oklahoma is being completely lit up in the sky. This is one of the big shots right here. This radar in Texas has launched a double beam, one here and one here, and then another wave frequency beam up here in Nebraska. This is the entire area that they are putting on alert for the severe weather system that's coming through. And one of the main things they're calling for is a big hail event. As I said earlier, if you go to the hail tab right here, you can see, look, a 30% chance within this area here, and it's all swinging up from Texas through Oklahoma, right where we saw them priming the sky, once again, just as they did last weekend. That's the hail number there. Here is the significant wind patterns, again, pulling up, forming that 9 shape like a nor'easter would be on the northeast. Here's our tornado warning area, 5% within a 4 to 5 state radius. That's going to be interesting to watch. And then the categorical as a whole covers almost 20 million people within this storm range. Of course, we're going to be focusing from Oklahoma up through Iowa and the Dakotas, Minnesota, and now you know why. Keep an eye on this area all day today and tomorrow. It's being completely lit up. If we have some sort of significant hail event that they're calling out days ahead of time, you can pretty much guarantee you know why. They're making this happen. And I know that may seem very hard to believe for people that have never looked into this stuff before, but as soon as you look into it, it's as obvious as it can be that many of these storms are being manipulated. Not all of them. Some of them are let alone and just happen as they were supposed to happen. But these in particular, these storms are being affected by these radar systems for whatever means they have. Again, as I move frame by frame here, look at the ripples in these clouds in all different directions because those radar are shooting from Texas up, Oklahoma down, Nebraska down. They're creating this area of high energy that once that moisture hits it, you're going to see your hail situations, your big tornadoes, or even extra severe weather that was not already going to be there. But here I go frame by frame. You're going to see the clouds moving over the frequencies, but the frequencies themselves don't move. They stay in the same exact place as the weather moves over them. And you can get a real good view of it here as the sun comes up over Oklahoma. Boom. The rings are all right there, different frequencies coming from different radar. And yes, when you look up in the sky and you see these, you're pretty much looking at radar beams or the rings that these radar make, and they stay still while the clouds move over them. So that is a little update for you on the upcoming system.
All right, so some of the stuff in that video looked really familiar to me and it got me wanting to do my homework. So I looked into the subject and I found something really interesting that I'm going to show you guys. This is called constructive interference, and this is actually from a phased array. Phased arrays are very popular in 5G, but they are also used in Doppler NexRad radar systems. So what they can do is they can alter the timing of so each little element fires at a different time, and it can actually cause constructive interference. They fire at a specific rate that causes the waves to overlap and constructively interfere with each other, producing what's called plane waves. Now, these plane waves may not be what's happening, but it looks like a very similar phenomenon. And this was the closest thing that I could find on short notice to what may or may not be happening here. But I just wanted to reiterate that phased arrays are employed in both 5G and next-rad Doppler radar. All right, so now with that said, I want to go to how does this relate to Maui? Okay, so I will show this graphic from August 7th. This is the evening of August 7th. And these clouds were seen moving in towards the Hawaiian Islands, but they stop right at the Hawaiian Islands. Now, I've never seen anything like this before, but maybe it's more common, but maybe it's not. But we will have someone who's actually a local to Hawaii and also a weather expert who will comment on that here shortly. So I just want to show you that the evening of August 7th, where we have these linear cloud patterns that could potentially be plane waves caused by some sort of constructive interference. But that's just it's just my theory. I'm just speculating. I'm not a weather expert. So now we move into the morning of August 8th, where you can still see that these cloud formations are still in a somewhat linear pattern. And then we go to the evening of August 8th during the Maui fire, and you can see that the cloud patterns are more well-defined, and they do look like they are linear parallel lines. Another thing to point out is that the satellite data over Maui is also missing, conveniently enough. And then we will move on to the 9th, the morning of the 9th. Looks like more normal cloud patterns. And I want to show a zoomed out view. And this shows all of the linear parallel cloud waves that were approaching the Hawaiian Islands during the time of the Maui fire. Now, I do have another video clip that I want to show from someone who is a local to Maui named Bruce Douglas. And he's been following the weather patterns for over 15 years on Hawaii. And we're going to hear what he has to say about it.
The 6th, normal wind patterns in the morning and afternoon, but something happens on the 7th. The the clouds start lining up in straight lines coming at us in the morning of the 7th. And it's interesting, these lines of clouds don't go past the Hawaiian Islands. They stop at the Hawaiian Islands. Both are very unusual. By the afternoon, we were having a very strong wind across the island. You can see there were perfect lines of clouds, very unusual. They would be lined up in harmonic patterns like this, and for some reason only go as far as the Hawaiian Islands and then stop and not go past us. Two very peculiar anomalies. And I've been looking at weather for 15 years and saving screenshots of hurricanes and video loops, and I have not seen anything like this before. This is the afternoon and morning of the 8th. You can still see the lines of clouds, only the sun angle is a little different, so we don't see it quite as pronounced. And here on the actual evening of the 8th, when we had the big windstorm that propelled the fires, again, the clouds were in perfect lines lining up against us. And for some reason, the Maui was blacked out on this particular image. Now, there is a line that sometimes appears across images. Was it random or intentional that was blacked out? It always makes us wonder. But then we see the next day, it goes back to normal wind patterns again on the 9th in the morning and the afternoon.
Okay, so there you saw Bruce Douglas commenting on what used to be, well, according to him, over 15 years of observation is a rare weather pattern or rare weather formation within the clouds. So now I did want to go ahead and show another graphic. And this is the prediction from today, as a matter of fact. So as we are recording this now, it is May 26th. And this is a storm that's due to hit the Midwest. And I did want to take more time on this video, but it is a little bit of a rush job because I figured that the threat had passed, at least for now. This was supposed to be a rare phenomenon that hit Texas, but then we've seen it now 3 times in the past week. And it looks like a potentially 4th event is coming. And this one may actually be coming for me as well. So I figured I better rush this video out before I lose power. I do live in this photo somewhere, an undisclosed location, which I will not reveal, but I am in this photo somewhere. And so I want to get this video done and edited and scheduled and uploaded before the winds arrive here tonight. So with that said, I just wanted to let you guys all be aware of this new phenomenon known as derechos, which were typically a rare phenomenon in the past, but they seem to be the new normal, perhaps. A couple other points I wanted to bring up is that the they are showing up more often now, and we all need to be more weather aware. So I encourage you guys to go to the Max Velocity Weather channel and subscribe to him and click the bell notification. And if there is any inclement weather in your area, so long as you live in the continental United States, he will warn you in time for you to take shelter. All right. With that said, that's all I got for today. So back to you, Tracy.
So thank you, Shane, for putting that presentation together. We will continue to follow these storm systems as well as other unusual weather events going on. And right now there are many. I just got a video of one in Mexico City where there's these huge pieces of hail that fell, in the middle of summer. So we are following them. I don't think we'll be able to cover them all, but we will do our best and try to bring, real information about what these weather events are really about. So again, if you have not subscribed yet, please do so. Also, ring the bell because a lot of my videos don't get notified, or a lot of my subscribers don't get notified. So ring the bell so that you see all of my recent uploads, and please like, share, and comment. And with that, I will see you all next time. Bye.